There are schools of thought that although you were sincerely dedicated to the proposition that the peace agreements could work, that others, and Henry Kissinger among them, really only saw them, as the phrase became, as a decent interval between the withdrawal of American forces and the inevitable, and some people felt desirable, fall of South Vietnam. Is there any validity to that argument?
Well, others may have thought it, but I did not think that at all. And I wouldn't have made that kind of a deal if I thought so. Let me say, to those who say, however, that we should not have made the agreement and we should have just continued to bomb until we had bombed the North Vietnamese back into the Stone Age, let me say that that was no longer politically viable. Witness, before Watergate, what the Democratic caucus had done in early January. That shows you that we were doing all that we could do politically in order to hold on as long as we did. The second point is this. I knew the agreement was fragile, but on the other hand, I also felt that with the credibility that I had in the minds of the North Vietnamese, witness what I had done in May of 1972 when I bombed and ordered the bombing and mining of Hanoi and Haiphong, and the so-called Christmas bombing of 1972, I thought that that very threat would be enough to at least keep them from launching a major offensive. And let me say that for the balance of my service as president, it did. And as a matter of fact, for 2 years after the peace agreement, the North Vietnamese, while they were violating the ceasefire and so forth and so on, did not conquer a provincial capital. Let me just understand one thing. You talk about who lost Vietnam. The American soldiers didn't lose Vietnam. Neither did the South Vietnamese lose Vietnam. It was lost because the Congress of the United States, egged on by the media and by the best and the brightest in the intellectual establishment, etc., cut back on the aid, military aid to South Vietnam to balance what the Russians were doing for the North. And I would say to future presidents and so forth, whatever our foreign policy is, any place in the world, particularly in small countries like this, let's just be sure it's an even fight. Let's be sure we do as much for our friends and allies as the Soviet Union does for its allies. If we don't, we are going to lose without ever having a major war.